Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wild on Design, presented by the Pacific Design Center. I'm Jennifer Convy. I'm your host. I'm also the Director of Women in Luxury Design. Today, we are so excited to welcome a dear friend and incredibly talented interior designer. Can't wait to get to it. Timothy Corrigan is here today. He is one of the world's leading interior designers with offices in Los Angeles and Paris, and his firm has completed projects in all over Europe, Asia, the Middle East, across the United States. His firm specializes in really elegant, comfortably outfitted interior design and incorporates antiques into most of his projects. And it's stunning, every single one of them. His clients include royalty, Hollywood celebrities, and corporate leaders. He has been named to virtually every top designer list, including Architectural Digest 8100, Elle Decor A-List, Robb Report's top 40 designers in the world, the Lux Gold list, and of course, the Pacific Design Center Star of Design. It goes on and on and on. He is the only American honored by the French Heritage Society for his restoration of several national landmarks in France. The firm's work has been featured in over, now get this, 1,000 publications worldwide. Where does he have the time? I don't think I've ever said those words. I don't think that is true of anybody else. So congrats to him. Timothy has designed and licensed many collections for a wide range of luxury products for Perennials, Schumacher, Samuel & Sons, and more. And we're going to learn all about it. Also, he has 2 best-selling books and a 3rd one on the way by Rizzoli. I mean, very impressive. Anyway, we're going to learn so much today. Please welcome Timothy Corrigan. Hi, dear.
Hey, how are you? It's so good to see you again. It's
Thank
wonderful.
you. It's so good to see you too.
Been
my
a
goodness.
crazy couple of years, hasn't it?
Yes. Now, how have you been? I want to hear, I know a little bit, but because you're in the news all the time, all those periodicals and publications. And social media, my goodness. So I'm up on you, and I just tell everyone what it was like, when the world shut down. I know you're always busy with projects, but how did that affect your business? How was that for you?
Well, it was interesting because I was determined that I was not going to let it affect our business. I spent the first 2 weeks basically just calling every client we have around the world and getting a temperature reading from them to say, hey, how are things going for you? How do you see the future of this? And how do you want to proceed in terms of your jobs? Because I think it's really important that you really try to fit the needs of your clients. And it was interesting because literally, with the exception of one big project, which did get put on hold, we proceeded as if business was totally as normal. I went into the office every single day during that entire shutdown period. Fortunately, I'm close enough to my office so I could even just walk here. I was the person manning everything, sort of answering the door, answering the telephone. Just me. Everyone else was working remotely from home. But that was a long 3 months where I thought I cannot wear every hat and continue to do all that, but I did. And then, fortunately enough, our offices are such that everyone has their own office. We have windows that can open, et cetera. So once that first shutdown happened, we actually all returned to office, which was really lovely. We all were wearing masks. But once we would, in our own office, we could take them off, and we kept all the windows open. All through last winter, we kept the windows open and the heat on so that we had the airflow. So we were really able to maintain. And then once people got vaccinated, we were able to sort of, a month after the last person did, we were able to take off our masks. We still have the windows open. And so it really has been, it's really been fine for us. It's been a great opportunity to get off the airplane that I was all the time. I think I travel around 75% of the time because we've got projects going on everywhere. That was lovely to not be on the airplane.
I bet. Yeah. I bet. Beautiful home, beautiful office. So wait a minute, let me get this straight. So you never stopped working and you only had 3 months of isolation in your office though by yourself
Yes,
while the team
exactly.
worked remotely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very, very fortunate, and we're all fortunate that if we're going to have the windows open for safety and airflow, that we live winter in Southern California. It's
Right.
not too
You know,
bad.
I understand that a lot of people in New York are still not back because their buildings are not, structured in a way that they can open windows. And I even have friends here who are in buildings where they can't open the windows, and it's a real issue then. But I
Yeah.
feel so lucky that we have that.
Oh, you are lucky, and it couldn't happen to a better person. I know, it's true. It's actually the industry and building and architecture is going to change radically. It already has in exactly this, airflow, safety, filters, all that stuff, circulation, light, all of that. Very interesting. How, during this period of time, did you experience a shift either from your clients in the industry as a whole, your practices beyond the safety measures?
Well, it's interesting because we've always worked a lot internationally, so we gotten used to doing Zoom meetings and things like that beforehand. And I actually find for some things, particularly when you're dealing with architecture, a Zoom meeting actually forces you all to become much more focused because you're all looking at that exact same plan. And if you're making marks on that plan, you're all seeing that. So from a perspective of architecture, I think Zoom is actually a great tool. But as I say, we've been doing that all along. We're currently working in 6 different countries around the world. Here in the United States, we're working in 9 different states right now. So we really have to be able to figure out ways to work well at a distance so that you're not always on an airplane.
Right. Oh, by the way, I hope this is okay to bring up because we had a lovely chat while I was in traffic trying to stay safe and concentrate. But we had a few laughs. And while we were talking, there was a certain celebrity client's team calling you, and I heard the whole conversation on another line. And you said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It was so-and-so." Would you please share if that's okay?
Be delighted to. It was the wonderful actress Sofia Vergara, who is truly one of the most delightful, the sweetest, most fun, most really incredible persons that I've ever worked with. I've been ever lucky enough to work with. She's got great taste and she's so much fun. But she was calling because we were having some landscaping issues, and she was calling from the set in London, and we were dealing with it. But it's
So glamorous.
It's always fun to have clients like that who take things in their stride, and I think someone like that really does.
Right. That's fantastic. She seems like she's just the most terrific person. So it's always nice to hear somebody confirm that who actually knows.
Absolutely.
And she does have good taste because she hired you. Can you tell us anything about the aesthetic? Was there something different that you're doing with her that you're excited about?
It's a big house that needed a total redo. So we've stripped. I think it's a more than 15,000 square foot house that we're just totally redoing from top to bottom, with every sort of surface being redone, et cetera. But it's going to be really fabulous. So I'm looking forward to being able to share it with people when it's done in the new year.
We can't wait, and we'll be on the lookout for it. So, Timothy, you were born and raised in Los Angeles, right? I have seen your gorgeous home. It's been a few years in Hancock Park. Tell the story about growing up in a particular home from your childhood.
Well, it's interesting. I have to say, I was not born here, but I basically lived here most of my childhood. And the house that I lived in from the time I was 7 to 11 or 12 went on the market a couple of years ago, around 10 years ago. And the people that my family had sold it to were the ones who were selling it. And so I just wanted to go back and look at the house to sort of to see was it everything in my memory had told me it was. And I just fell in love with it all over again, and was able to make an offer. And of course, there were lots of offers on the house. So I sent a photo of myself in the swimming pool as a little child, and it said, "Please let me go home again." And so fortunately, I was the one who bought it. So it was really fun. I actually I'm not even in that house anymore. I've since moved from there because I'm a house junkie. I just love houses. I love the process of redoing them, etc. So my new house is in the new November-December issue of Lux magazine. It's also in Hancock Park because I think Hancock Park is the best area of LA to live because it's got wide streets. It feels like you could be anywhere in the middle of America. And we've got block councils and street fairs, and it's just a great place, close to everything, but still very quiet. So I'm very proud of Hancock Park.
Oh, you should be. It's got such great provenance and history and architecture. I'm part of the Windsor Square Preservation Organization. I mean, there's just so many beautiful, incredible estates and homes there. Congrats to you. Yeah, but how many people get to, I mean, what a hard sell. Whew, how could you turn that down? How many people say,
Exactly.
hey, can I buy the house I grew up in?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Really, really fantastic. I want to jump into something here because you are such an art historian, art design scholar. Every time I hear you speak at a presentation, it's never the same thing twice. I learned so much and you're so engaging. I absolutely love hearing anything you have to say about interior design and so forth. So I want to know, I would like in your own words to share, because I've heard you tell this. You had an entirely different career that was also incredibly successful and glamorous, and you were at the pinnacle of it when you discovered that you might be making a big shift. Can you just walk us through what you were doing versus what you wound up doing?
Absolutely. And it's a wonderful story. And I like to tell the story because I think it's so important for people who perhaps are not doing what their dream job is, because I think it's really, to me, it's telling about the importance of following your passion and following your dream. So I was working in advertising, which when I started out was an industry that I loved. I was relatively successful in it. By the time I was 27, I was the youngest senior vice president in the history of Madison Avenue in New York. By the time I was 30, I was named to run our European network. It's one of the largest advertising agencies in the world. And we had 37 different offices around Europe that I was responsible for. And so I moved to Paris to do that job. And I loved it. It was a great job. My apartment, which I had done myself in Paris, was featured in House and Garden magazine at the time. And people started asking me if I would help them with design sort of on the side. And so I started doing it sort of as a nighttime moonlighting job. And I sort of, that continued on for a number of years. Years, yes.
And you're a vice president with a lot of people working under you.
Yeah, so at that point, I was an executive vice president of this big company. And then I got promoted again and became the head of all the entire international division worldwide. So I moved back to New York. And at that point, I was running 6,000 employees, 197 offices in 96 countries around the world. And what it was, I was so far removed from what had gotten me into advertising in the first place, which was the creativity and developing wonderful marketing ideas, et cetera. I could have been a firefighter. All I was doing was basically putting out fires, problems, whether they were clients who were problematic or a general manager of one of our operations who left, whatever it was, and I had to replace them. I was on the road nonstop, and I was so far removed from anything that was creative, everything that had gotten me into that business. But meanwhile, I was still doing my nighttime job, here and there with clients who were very patient and willing to let me, not get things to them as quickly as they certainly would expect today. And I realized that was really what my passion was, and that I needed to make a change. At the time, I remember going to my boss, and he was like, "Well, who's hiring you? And whatever. Right. Are you having a midlife crisis? Stolen. What is this?" But I was like, no, I know this is what I need to be doing. I need to follow this passion. And so I left New York, moved back to California, where I was from originally, and opened an office here in design. And I was very lucky that early on we were very successful early on. But the reason I tell you it's an interesting story is that it's all about doing what is right for you, and that when you do, when you're really true and honor yourself and what's right for you, what your inner voice says is right for you, the universe will support you. It really will make it possible for that to come about. And so that's why I think it's an important story to tell.
It's so inspirational because the first career in and of itself is enough for one lifetime, but you were true to yourself and you took a huge gamble, not really because you were already doing it for years, but it's just a lesson. I truly believe I second whatever you say on this topic, because I think that creative people often, not that kind of story, but often start in one thing and then wind up in the thing that they really truly should be doing. But the impetus was to explore it. And then, you got there and you were there and it wasn't what you had planned it being, and you were being fed by this art.
And what's interesting, particularly in design, I think what's so great about design, one of the reasons I love it so much, is that everything you've done before, actually you bring to design and it makes you that much better a designer. So we actually make a point of hiring people who have had other careers. So we've currently got a former talent agent. We've had a Goldman Sachs trader. We've had a brain surgeon. We literally all across a professional Broadway dancer. They all bring something to their new lives as designers that make them even better designers. So
isn't that fabulous? You're giving them the opportunity to live their dream. I love that. And that was one of my questions I wanted to ask you, and I think you've answered it, but please expand upon it. What in your advertising background and that success helped feed the success? It surely was an advantage in starting your next business.
Well, great question. I think that Jennifer, the specific things that I took away from my background in marketing and advertising was, first is the importance of really understanding the customer, understanding your client, really understanding what they're looking for, what they want. So we actually even have a whole 3 or 4 hour process that we do after we've signed a client, where we actually get to know them, get to know really what they like, and equally importantly, get to know what they don't like. Because what happens is, if you find out what they don't like early on, and then you never show them things that they don't like, they are going to think after the second and third meeting, my gosh, this person really understands me. They totally get me. Because you're just simply not showing what they don't like. It's an easy thing to take off the table.
No misses, only hits.
Yes. So and what that does is that starts to develop a sense of trust, because they feel like, oh, they understand me. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I got from my background in marketing is the importance of standing for something. There are so many designers who try to be all things to all people. And I came out very early on saying, I want to be known for what we call comfortable elegance, so that no matter how beautiful a room is, it's not really successful if it's not also comfortable. And there's not just the physical aspect of comfort, which is an obvious one, but there's psychological and there are practical aspects of comfort. So it's exploring all of those things. And I remember that very early into my career, we were named the AD 100. And they actually talked about in this paragraph where they're describing our work, was that said Timothy believes that the most beautiful room is not really successful if it's not also comfortable and livable. And as if that was sort of some sort of weird, strange landmark thought, is that a room should have both beauty and comfort. Yeah, imagine that.
It has to be functional and comfortable.
Yes. Until then, no one.
You're onto something.
They hadn't focused on that. They were just focusing on, gee, this is a gorgeous room, but how do you really live in that room? So it was that desire to develop a positioning, which included comfort in all of its different forms, that helped establish the business we became. So it was that positioning of what we were going to stand for. And then I think the third and perhaps equally important is this aspect of what I learned of running a business with 6,000 employees and 197 offices, is the importance of having solid business practices, because there are lots of designers who are incredibly talented, but don't always have the best business practices. And the business side of our business of our industry is equally importantly. It's it's certainly, you've got to have the beautiful creative design and concept, but you've got to be able to execute that. You've got to be able to execute it in a timely fashion with the level of quality that's expected, and with the costs that have been projected. And so I think that if you can deliver on all three of those, then you really have a really strong business.
Yeah, and you do. One of the things I always notice about every design that I have seen, including your home, is that it's so elegant, and yet you look and there's just layers, beautiful layers of textures, whether it's wall coverings, fabrics, and art, and artifacts and antiques. And it's like, but it's all seamless. So you're enveloped in it, and then you look around and you're comfortable and cozy in it, but there's just always layers to your designs. And I so love it and appreciate
thank you.
The elegance.
It's interesting. What's interesting about layering, and it's something that people don't often think about, is that a minimalist room looks its best when there's no one in it, and none of your daily life things are in it. The newspaper, the dog leash, the phone, the computer, all those things. If you're living in a really minimalist house, that house is not designed for those things to be a part of them. Whereas if you're living in a house that is more layered to start with, those things just filter in and they just become another item as a part of the whole mix. So it makes it easier to live in a home that is more layered.
Excellent. I agree with that, because the previous version is hard. Yeah, really hard for me.
Yes.
The dog leash, computer, all of it. Who doesn't have all those things? So all things started in France for you, really, that inspiration.
Yes.
Is it safe to call you, it's not a bad name, a Francophile, loving all things French?
Yeah, I am indeed a Francophile. It's interesting. I am first and foremost an American. I'm so proud of being an American. And it's always the country I would choose to be the citizen of. But I will say I actually feel more at home in France. I feel there's something in it that just stirs my soul in a way that I don't get here. And I think it was moving to France, it was that exposure to history, to culture, to art. All those things are truly a part of the French DNA in a way that it's not here. And it's frankly just because we're a younger country, and we don't have all that as a part of our historical background. But I think those are the things that I particularly love, and what helped form me as a designer was living in France, and just that exposure to all of that on a daily basis. I actually have come to call myself, or think of myself, as a chateau-holic. I love chateaus. I've actually owned 4 chateaux, and the book was actually on my 3rd chateau. I love the process of redoing chateaus, both for myself and for clients. Right now, we're working on chateaus for a couple different clients. I love the process because you start to take apart this old building that was built for a certain way of life, whether it was in the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century. Life was different then. And so those buildings were structured to accommodate a different way of life. Right. What I love about doing them is taking them down, understanding what was there, what was the history of them, but then figuring out, how do I make it appropriate for life in the 21st century? How do you change something where the kitchens were always in another building for fear of a fire that would burn down the building? And how do you put a kitchen into a structure that never had one and still make it feel appropriate to that building? So it's that whole process that I love, because you can't take a cookie cutter approach, because you have to accommodate the structure itself. You have to accommodate, the walls may be 6 foot thick stone that you can't just put plumbing through. Right. So it's this aspect of really trying to figure out how to make it work. And then it's the process also of stripping away and discovering different layers of paint, different layers of wallpaper. So you start to see, it's really, I think of it almost as an act of archaeology, because you start to see how people thought and lived at different periods of time. So to me, it's just a wonderful experience.
Tell us about the first one that became a book. It's a stunning book, before and after.
So I've actually had 4 chateaus. That was my 3rd chateau. And I actually did a book on that chateau, Chateau de Grand Lucé, which has now become one of the top boutique hotels in the world. And I'm got a new chateau, the Chateau Chevalerie, which I'm working on a new book for as well, which is going to be called Town and Country France, which will focus on my life in Paris and the new chateau.
Oh, can't wait for that one. I have the first one, the before and afters. Your restoration work is incredible and the stories that go with it. And then you have another book, a second book in between the first and the third. Please tell us about this. It goes right to what we were just talking about, your style.
So that book was called The New Elegance, and it really is about how to live beautifully and elegantly, but comfortably today. And it really breaks out all the different components. There's a lot of, I don't want to say how to, but there are a lot of sections in it that say, here's how you can apply what you just learned in this chapter to your own home. And it was amazingly successful. It went into a reprint after just 3 weeks of being on the market.
I'm a proud owner of a signed copy of that one too. Absolutely gorgeous. And I will be sure and get the third one. This is by Rizzoli and available online. Yes. And okay, so you are so busy. You have multiple collections with multiple luxury brands, and they're varied. They're quite a range. If you would, just tell everybody some of them. I don't know. I've lost track. Here, quite a few.
So, one of the things that I love about doing the product development like that with designs is that it actually mixes my former career in marketing and my new career in design. So I have a wonderful collection of fabrics and rugs with Schumacher. We've had 2 different collections, and I'm working on a 3rd, which will be coming out in 23. I've got a collection with perennials of both solution dyed acrylic fabrics and rugs for them. That collection came out 2 years ago, and a new collection will be coming out in January of 24. I've got a collection of trims for Samuel & Sons, which is also in the PDC. That collection is actually named after my current chateau, and I've got a new collection coming out in 23 for that. I've got a collection with THG Plumbing Paris, which is sort of the luxury end of plumbing, and it's going to be it's at the PDC as well. And I've got a collection of wallpapers with Fromental, which is at Thomas Lavin in the PDC. And again, beautiful.
You're a walking commercial for products. You're in every single showroom.
Well, I'm a walking commercial for the PDC because I love the PDC. I just think the PDC is one of the best design centers in the world. And
absolutely.
I'm so happy it's ours.
Yes. And it's in the neighborhood. Yes. Yay. Wow. So yeah, that's a lot. I lost count, but congratulations to you. That's a tremendous amount of work, and the designs are beautiful.
Thank you.
So really congratulations.
Thank you.
And looks like it's going to be another bright year for you. I have a question for you in parting. What advice from all your experience and insight, you've given some great wisdom and pieces of advice throughout our talk here, but what would you tell the next group of rising, talented interior designers in this ever-changing climate and time? What would be the single most important piece of advice you would tell them now?
I would say that in this environment, the overarching issue is establishing trust with your clients. And one of the surest ways to establish strong trust with your clients is with total transparency. Total transparency of what things cost, how you do your business, laying it all out there. Clients increasingly, like never before, can find out any bit of information. They can find out where something is sourced, what it costs, what it's made of, et cetera. So the more transparent you are, the more open you are about all of that, the better you will be, and the stronger and longer term relationship you can have with your clients, because trust is the basis of every good relationship.
I am so thrilled to hear you say that. That's so influential, and I really think it's timely. I see in the industry people still struggling with that, and it always bites them, so to speak. We're in the information age, and before you get handed the keys to the kingdom, somebody's kingdom, it's a huge investment, and they've got to trust you, know you, like you, that and all those things. And are you being authentic with everything, including the information of what things cost, because that'll sink you before you start. I love that piece of advice. I am seeing a shift in the industry that used to be so proprietary. Those days are long gone, and we're catching up.
Absolutely.
Such gems. I am so excited for you, just in the new year coming up. And thank you so much for being here, Timothy. Safe travels.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you so much for having me on. I just love you, and so love the PDC. So thank you.
Always such a pleasure. Love to you too.
Thank you. All right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, everyone. That's it for today's episode. We will catch you next time. A special thank you to Pacific Design Center. Take care.